Hello there, everyone. I am currently waiting for something right now, and I figured that now would be a good opportunity to just take out my tablet and record a vlog. Because I would have done this yesterday had it occurred to me any earlier than it did, but it occurred to me only late last night, and so I've sadly had to wait till today, when this video will not be quite as topical. Because this is a video about 9/11. And I'm doing it now on September the 12th, but who cares? And specifically, this is a video in which I feel like I want to just relate my experiences as a person who is 18 now and was 5 at the time it happened. As sort of how I feel like my relationship to that event is so much different from everyone else's. Because most people, that event had a really big impact with them. That was like a worldview changer to them. The thing is, it really wasn't to me. And so, okay, to elaborate, I do remember 9/11. I was 5 at the time, and I have some fragmented memories. I seem to remember seeing news coverage of a plane hitting a building, and I distinctly recall one fact I recall, which I could be misremembering this, so it may be that this was misreported. I don't know that this is true, but I remember it impacted me at the time, was that supposedly 8 2-year-olds had died on the plane, and because I wasn't much older than that, I was 5, that impacted me especially heavily. But here's the thing, and here's the thing that makes 9/11 fundamentally different for me, and I'm not complaining. The reaction of the adult generation is correct. I guess I'm just sort of relating this because I feel like adults might be interested in how, I don't know. I mean, I technically am an adult myself. I'm 18, so I had never heard of the World Trade Center or the Twin Towers before they fell. I'd never heard of Islam before 9/11 happened. It did sadden me when I heard about it, but it's not like it would be if that had happened today with, like, the Statue of Liberty or the Gateway Arch. Or, I don't know. Yeah, those are probably our 2 biggest landmarks in the U.S. right now. I don't know how the World Trade Center ever related to those 2, because I was too young when it was gone. I expected to do a long vlog, but apparently this has only ended up 4 minutes. I need to think of more stuff to say. Oh, yeah. So for me, I've really never known a world that was not post 9/11. I've never known a world where air travel isn't widely feared. Like, I was actually one of the few things I remember happening before then was I was on a plane at one point before that. 9/11 is when my dad essentially decided to never fly again. And as far as I can think of, I don't think he has. I think he's driven everywhere. Like, driven to Orlando, Florida from Springfield, Missouri to avoid getting on a plane. Not because I want to avoid getting on a plane, because I understand that it's actually safer. I look terrible shot frame this way. Can't really figure out a different way to do it. But I've never known a world where that kind of level of fear of air travel didn't exist. I've never known a world where that level of fear of Islam and of the Middle East did not exist. And maybe I'm wrong to think that started or accelerated with 9/11. Or that it... I mean, obviously it accelerated, but maybe I'm wrong to think that it was not really a thing before 9/11. Like, a thing in the sense of it was very widespread and pretty much everyone subscribed to it at one point. Or at least most people, a lot of people. Like, I know that, like, the Middle East did bad things before that. But it's so weird, because, like, on 9/11, everyone is sitting there, like, on the anniversary, 9/11 in the sense of the anniversary, everyone is always sitting there, like, solemn. Or at least whenever, you know, once per every year, on that day, someone will turn to me and say, "You realize it's the anniversary of 9/11?" And I'll be like, "Oh, that thing that impacted other people." And that's probably really callous. And that's not to say I don't care about 9/11 or its victims. But I can't possibly relate to the emotional impact that the event had on them. Because it didn't have that on me. Now, the event has probably, in a way, had more impact on me indirectly than it has on them. Because again, since I was 5, grown up in post-9/11 culture, which is, at least from what I hear, much worse than pre-9/11 culture. At the time, I basically inherited my political views from my father, and at the time, my father was pretty far right. He's actually approached center today. He's still to the right of me, but which back then, if anything, I was probably to the right of him, which is actually a scary thought. But I remember the cultural reaction to it. What's making me hesitate is I feel like I'm diverging from the unique viewpoint of a young person. I feel like I'm starting to say things that anyone else could say about it. But, like, I remember Toby Keith made a song, and when I look back on that song now, it's interesting insofar as it's an interesting piece of history, but its thesis is really, really stupid. The thesis of Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, that's the name of the song, is basically, let's do something to them. In this really jingoistic, ill-thought-out, emotionally driven way. And the thing is that I, at the time, was not that emotionally impacted by 9/11, not in the same way that I now know everyone else was. Because, like, I know that if the Statue of Liberty fell under similar circumstances today, or especially if I lived in a world where 9/11 hadn't happened and that happened today, I get that the impact it would have on me would be vastly different. But that is like, I didn't so much feel that rage as much as I absorbed it by osmosis. Like, I understood, not because I'd actually felt it, but because it was what other people had told me, that this was a grave and unforgivable crime against America. And that the answer was basically to do bad things to all those countries with funny names. Because that was the level of comprehension I had of it. There was all those countries with funny names over there on the globe. And my understanding has, of course, increased since then. Some people's hasn't, but that's another story. A lot of people's hasn't. Like, I wonder... Heck, I couldn't do this. I wonder how many people could look at a map of the Middle East and a list of countries and place countries. I probably would get, like, 3 of them. I think I would get Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, possibly Afghanistan, and Egypt. And that would be it. But I digress. I guess the point of this video is that I feel the need to relate this sort of dissonance I feel with everyone around me, where people who are significantly older than me, even guys like Jacob, Thunderbolt 94 Jacob, not Jacob Sherwood, who is a different Jacob. Like, even he who was 12 at the time has sort of this deep wound created by that event, and I really, really don't. And I don't fault them for having that wound. That's the correct or at least, you know, the expected reaction from any human in their circumstances, but I wasn't in their circumstances. And I'll never... To me, like, 9/11 is fundamentally kind of something that happened to other people. Not the victims. What I mean by that is that 9/11 is something that happened to the generation before me. 9/11 is something that happened to people who were born, to people who are either basically to people who to people who right now are at least in their mid to late 20s. And it feels like it didn't really happen to me, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it makes that anniversary date really awkward. Because I fundamentally cannot relate to this heavy experience everyone else is recollecting about. Like, even my older brother kind of seems to... Because he would have been, like, 7 a month before... He would have been, like, 7 years... He would have been 7 years and 11 months minus 9 days old. Because Uh, and so it's possible that he's bullshitting to, just to kind of have the same experiences as the adults to basically to curry their favor, because he would totally fucking do that. But who knows, maybe 7 was old enough. And maybe 5 was just too young. But I mean, I guess that's the answer to the question. What's it like? The answer to the question, no one asked out loud, but that a lot of people probably don't mind knowing. The answer to the question, what is it like to have been so young when 9/11 happened? The answer is, it basically makes 9/11 a thing that happened to the last generation to me. And it makes it weird talking about it with people from that generation. Because they all had this deep psychological experience that I was not subject to. And that's everything. I've wasted enough of your time. Video should be coming out relatively soon that I recorded on a vacation I took a few days ago. And internet quality for Sonic.exe 2 is... the first draft of the script is written. I'm gonna wait a little bit to basically forget what I wrote so I can come back to it later and check it. Make sure there's nothing I need to change, and then from there I'll probably start to try to make internet qualities a little more often by writing a couple of scripts at a time and then recording a couple scripts at a time. Because by far the biggest barrier to the release of those things is the fact... By far the biggest barrier to the release of those things is essentially my procrastination in between each of the steps of making that. So it's, I write the script, that takes a night, basically. Takes an evening and a night. I then wait a week, do that again, and then recording proper would take, again, another evening, and editing would probably take 2 or 3 more. And all of that depending on the length of the video. But I think that if I mass-produce them a little bit more, I can get them out faster, because instead of that procrastination time for each one, that it will be that procrastination time for each group of 2 or 3. Though, Sonic.exe 2, I might just do in its lonesome, even if I write another script before I do anything else, because Sonic.exe 2 is easily going to be over an hour long. Because I think just to read it out without adding any of the Grim Reaper's commentary would take as long as the entire last Sonic.exe review. And when you add the Grim Reaper commentary, which actually there's not that much, because really all of the problems with it show up right away, and by the end, if anything, you get used to the problems. And it's just, you'll see me talk about it when the video comes out. I've wasted enough of your time. I've wasted 19 minutes of your time. Goodbye.